Moving forward, I would like to introduce to you um, about our company. So we'll go ahead with that, and I'll try to wrap it up as quickly as possible, and then we'll go ahead with the main agenda of today's webinar. Okay. So yeah, let me start by introducing SCIA Global now. So yeah, SCIA Global. So we're a dynamic organization with a strong focus on governance, risk, and compliance, which is GRC, and also in areas of cybersecurity and audit and assurance. So, what sets us apart is not just our domain expertise of over 100 years, like collectively as a team, but our commitment to delivering, delivering modern, effective solutions that helps businesses navigate today in today's complex digital and regulatory environments. So at SCI Global, our mission is very simple: to empower organizations, with smart, scalable defenses, while ensuring compliance and trust every step of the way. Okay, moving ahead, I would like to introduce to you our leader. So, as you know, here you can see him on screen. Our leader is the founder and CEO of SCI Global, a dear friend of mine, Mr. Mallikarjuna Reddy. He is a 27-year-old entrepreneur with rich experience across, various global organizations, including a major Indian MNC. He also worked at a European bank and then worked at a top-tier accounting firm. So over the years, he's led more than 150 engagements worldwide in areas like, SOC 1, SOC 2, high trust and ITGCs, SOCs, and various other areas. I mean, if to say it in my words, I think his passion for technology and innovation is what drove the creation of SCI Global, and that same spirit drives everything we do currently as a team. So moving forward, I would like to let you know about our corporate philosophy. There comes our mission and vision statement. So they are pretty big vision and vision statements, so I cannot go ahead with them. I'll just brief it up for you. Our mission goes beyond just delivering services. As I said, our mission is simple: to empower organizations with smart and scalable defenses, right? So it goes beyond just delivering services. We aim to build awareness about risks, controls, and long-term resilience. Compliance is the foundation, but our vision is about transformation. Like when you have a mission, you need to have a vision where you want it to be or where you want to end up to be. So our vision is very simple. It is about transformation, helping organizations become proactive, resilient, and secure in the face of evolving threats. We also believe that awareness and strategy are not just checklists. They are like key to building, like key in building to a strong GRC and cybersecurity postures. So moving ahead, I would like to let you know about our service areas. Let's quickly go through that. So as you can see on screen, sorry about that. As you can see on screen, we have four major service areas: audit and assurance, risk consulting, cybersecurity, and co-sourcing. So just to give you a brief of what we do. Initially, about audit and experience, like we help companies align their technology and security with global standards throughout, through risk assessments, internal controls, and compliance audits. When it comes to consulting, our experts help clients understand and manage enterprise risk, regulatory challenges, and cybersecurity threats with tailored frameworks. So, moving ahead with cybersecurity, from vulnerabilities assessments to cloud and application security reviews, like penetration testings and like all such of testings, we implement strong protection strategies that keep businesses one step ahead of their threats, if I can say. So finally, about co-sourcing, we partner with internal teams to deliver cost-effective ID assurance and compliance services, offering like flexibility, scale, and expertise. So moving ahead, I will quickly deep dive. Let's go quickly deep dive into what these services are, what we actually provide. As you can see on screen, in audit and assurance, we give like SOX internal audit, SOC 1, SOC 2, NIST compliance, and etc. When it comes to risk consulting, we also deal with ISO 27001, ISO 27701, like many other things like PCI DSS, readiness, NIST, CSF, and etc. With cybersecurity, we do network, as I said, network vulnerability assessments, penetration testing, web application testing, and much more. With co-sourcing, like here we deal with high trust CSF readiness and validation assessments, high trust E1A assessments, high trust R2 assessment, SOC 1 and SOC 2, ISO, etc. These are like the things that you do see on screen. These are the main areas where we work. Okay, moving ahead, I would like to introduce to you about our team. So this is our team. So we have a collective experience of over 100 years. Like if you club up everyone of our team, we have collective experience of over 100 years. So our strength lies in our people. That's what we believe here at SCIA Global. So we are proud to have a diverse and deeply experienced team, ranging from consultants to leads with 20 years of infield experience in individually, more than 20 years, and collectively, as I said, as a team we have like over 100 years of experience. Our team also holds top industry certifications like CISA, CSSP, CCSO, ISO LA, ISO LI, and much more. Bringing technical depth, process knowledge, and business acumen to every engagement. So moving ahead, I would like to introduce to you one more area of service that we do. We call it as SCI Academy, but this is mostly with the training and certifications. We not just provide, co-sourcing, or we not just deep down into projects. We also have passion towards teaching and training and nurturing the next generation of compliance and security professionals. So that's the reason why at SCI Global, so you can call it as SCI Academy, we offer training and certification programs across standards like SOCs, ITGCs, the one which we are going to talk about in a few more minutes, and then we also give trainings and certifications in SOC 1, SOC 2, high trust, CSF, ISO, and PCI DSS. Making sure both our clients and industry grow stronger together. Okay, and yeah, thank you. That brings us to the end of our interaction. If you would like to connect, if you would like to know more about co-sourcing, or know more about our trainings and certifications, you can always call us or visit our website or email us, the ones that you see on screen. If you want to meet us in person and want to know more about such services, you can also visit us at Toli Choki, Hyderabad. So yeah, that brings us to the end of our introduction. So with no further ado, I would like to hand over this meeting to our leader, the CEO and founder and CEO of SCI Global, to take care of it. We'll deep dive into the main agenda of today's webinar, which is ITGC's Access Management. And thank you once again for joining today. And please, if you have any questions, make a note of them. At the end of the session, we'll be having a dedicated Q&A session for about 5 minutes. You can always put your questions in the Q&A section so that we'll read them and we'll answer your queries. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Let's go ahead with the agenda. Over to you, Mr. Mallikarjuna.
Good afternoon, everyone. I think it's a lot of introduction about SCA Global and me, so I'll not take much time. I'll quickly start with our ITGC co-agenda. So let me share my screen. So I don't know how many of you attended our earlier sessions. We have, I have given one webinar very long back, almost 8 months back, about the basic introduction about IT audit. So if you wanted to know about ITGCs, it is very important that you understand the basics of IT audit. Now, what is the necessity of information technology general controls in any company? So before, if you go to 20 years back, there was no technology, right? Hardly we had access to internet and systems or mobile devices. We didn't had that smartphones earlier. Now, the term IT audit, it is all evolved from audit, right? So we need to understand from audit point of view, then how technology evolved in audit. Now, how systems has been used in different businesses. Now, what are the different IT risks that impacts the business, or what are the different areas that as an organization they need to be very careful addressing different risks, right? So we need to understand it from audit point of view, then from IT audit point. So I'll share this slide. Whoever wanted to, get access to this presentation, you can follow SCIA Global and we will share it across to you. Okay. So now you need to understand what is audit. Now, audit is the process of examining and verifying financial records, statements, and operations of an organization. The objective of an audit is to provide assurance that an organization's financial statements and records accurately reflects its financial position, performance, and transaction. It was this was the one the kind of audit way back we the auditors, chartered accountants, or CPAs, or any accountants used to do back in 20 years. Right now it is not the same case. Now systems are used, technology applications are involved as a part of financial processor or financial systems. Now each and every transaction involves technology. Now this audit includes technology, right? Now that's where IT audit evolved from audit. Now we need to understand what are the different type of applications or systems which has been used in financial processor or different businesses to meet their business objectives, right? Now, who is an auditor? Auditor is always an independent qualified professional who is having enough skill to perform or examine financial systems or financial statements or different IT systems to evaluate if the systems are implemented in a way that different risks are prevented or managed effectively, and it meets the business objectives of the organization, right? So so we need to understand who is auditor. Now, auditor role may change. Like if it is in India, chartered accountants are the one who can sign on any of the audit reports. Now, if it is in US, CPAs, certified public accountants can sign on any of the audit reports. It's not the same. Chartered accountants can't sign on US audit reports, whereas CPAs can't sign on Indian audit reports. You need to understand what is the role here. Now, if you talk about auditor, anyone can be part of audits, but the signing authority is still lied with the certified public accountants or chartered accountants based on the geographical location. Right now, there are different types of auditor from auditing perspective. If you're performing audit for a specific organization internally, then the team will be independent from the rest of the departments, rest of the processes. This internal auditor will help the organization to assess their controls and see if there were any improvements or where they can improve their policies or procedures or controls. If they find any deviations, they help them to remediate the gaps, right? Whereas external auditors' objective is to, provide attestation where they independently examine their policies, procedures, their controls to see if they have right controls in place from design point of view, from operative effectiveness point of view, to ensure that the company have right controls in place to address all the risks. Right now, external auditors, internal auditors, you may not need a CPA or chartered accountant, but the expectation is to have enough expertise and experience to identify risks and verify if they have right controls in place to address all the risks. Whereas from external audit point of view, so only a certified public accountant or chartered accountant in India, or based on the geographical location, only accounting firm with license can perform external audits. Like in India, only chartered accountants, whereas in US, certified public accountants can perform external audits. Now they should have license from accounting boards. Like if it is in US, PCOB, they should have license to perform external audits. Whereas in India, again, they should be having license to run SCA practice. Only those firms can attest on any of the audit, right? Now, why do we perform audit? So improved accuracy of financial, if you talk from financial statements, financial audit standpoint, obviously to ensure improved accuracy on financial statements, detection of fraud and errors, improved internal controls, increased confidence and credibility. So this is very basic. Whatever the details we are going to discuss right now, these are very basic of audit. Now the key objective is to discuss about IT audit, right? IT general controls. Now I'm going to quickly wrap up rest of the slides and move on to the IT general controls part. Now different types of audits: financial audits, compliance audits, operational audit, and IT audit. Now we all know financial audits where they will be looking financial records and see if there were no any misstatements in the financial records, to see the company's performance position is as per as per the records, is whether it is accurate or not. Now auditors, whenever external auditor performs independent review and examination, at the end of the audit they will issue audit report which includes auditor's opinion, which there are four types of audit opinions, which is unqualified opinion, which means that there were no any gaps noted. Qualified opinion means there were few gaps. Adverse opinion is too worse, which can be indication of fraud. Now, disclaimer opinion, where sometimes due to certain situations, the audit might have stopped in between due to some issues like insufficient cooperation from the management or insufficient evidence to complete the whole audit process. Whatever, if it is like insufficient cooperation from the management or the auditor, in certain situations, the audit may not be completed till the end. So it will be considered as disclaimer where there is no any issue audit report issued. Now, what is IT audit? Now, we have discussed about different types of audits. Now, out of all these, wherever you deal information technology or systems, if you are going to examine if they have right controls in place in their technology landscape or IT environment, then all those audits will fall under IT audit space. If you consider it as an umbrella, there are a lot of projects comes under IT audit as well. Wherever you deal information security stuff or wherever the financial audits, where the auditor examines or verifies if they have right controls in place to maintain the integrity or to safeguard the assets and in meeting the business objectives of the organization, all those type of audits will come under IT audit, right? So if there are different types of projects like SOX ITGCs, or you can call it as ITGCs, because ITGCs are tested in different countries, but the name how it is used is different. If you talk it about in US, it is SOX ITGs. If it is in US, if it is in some other country, the name is different, but still the kind of controls which we are going to test are same, pretty much same. Okay, so now similar to any other project, so every project starts with planning. Now, similarly, even audit life cycle, if you talk about audit is also end of that, it's a business, right? Now it should also have a plan. It starts with planning. You need to prepare for the audit, kind of initial setup with the meeting. You'll have a meeting with the client, you'll have a introduction of the team, auditing team and auditee team. Then you ask required question to understand the environment properly. You decide what are the controls to be tested. You understand the environment properly and you decide what are the controls that you need to be examined to see if they have right controls in place. Now you prepare some sort of document which is referred as documentation request list or documents request list, where you'll ask for different type of documents or artifacts or evidence to perform your audit procedures. All these things comes under planning. Now field work, where you start obtaining the evidence and start reviewing the documentation. You do control testing, everything. The testing part, control testing part, test of design, test of operative, everything will fall under field work, right? Now reporting. Once if you complete the control testing, you will issue the report where you your report will be thoroughly reviewed by QA team and the senior leaders and the management of the client, and you will issue the final report, right? All these steps will come under reporting process, and finally you will, if you find any deviations or gaps, you will give some time for them for remediation. Then you'll follow up with them if they have remediated the control, if they can provide evidence for remediation. All these things comes under follow up, right? But if you wanted to know it in detail, now the audit process starts with, from external audit point of view, it always starts with engagement letter. So once if the client signs the engagement letter is nothing but kind of contract between the audit firm and the client management, right? Once if the contract is signed, then they will have a kickoff meeting where they will introduce the auditing team and the auditee team. They will discuss about the scope, roles and responsibilities, audit period, or the different applications which are in scope, everything, right? And they also decide what is the plan about the audit, like when are they going to start, what are the different timelines, or the key dates that they need to keep in mind once if they start. Assume if I give an example, when are they going to perform walkthroughs, or when are they going to obtain the initial population? What is the due date for obtaining the initial population? What is the due date for completing control testing? What is the due date for issue anticipated date to issue the final report? Like everything is decided and discussed as a part of kickoff meeting. Now, once if this is done, you will send a DRL or request list or PBC provided by client list to the client asking for or requesting for different documentation or artifacts. Now, once if you receive those, obtaining artifacts is something, it's a continuous process. You'll start right after the kickoff meeting. It will end somewhere, before the QA starts, right? So it's a continuous process for 1 to 3 months, depends upon the type of audit we are going to do and the, length and complexity of the audit, right? Now, client will start uploading the documentation, and the auditing team will start reviewing all those documentation. Now, as a part of, control testing, the first part is that you should understand the process properly, right? So as an auditor, you will be doing audit for different environments. You will do audit for cloud platforms, you will do for ERPs or CRM tools, you will do different applications, right? Now, as an auditor, you can't be an SME for each and every process. Definitely, it is very difficult for you that you become an SME for each of the process, right? Now, you should always keep in mind that audit is performed from scratch, but you still follow the standards, auditing standards, whatever you're going to do. Now, for that, the first thing you need to understand is process of the organization. You need to understand the process of the organization from scratch, understand what are the different risks that impacts the organization's environment. Now, see what are the different controls implemented to address all those risks effectively, right? So understanding the process properly, understanding different risks that can impact the business, and understanding what are the different controls implemented to meet the business objectives or address different types of risks effectively to meet the business objectives, right? So how do you get to know about this? You have to do an inquiry, or you have to do perform walkthroughs or interviews with the respective point of contacts or SMEs to gain more knowledge about their process, right? Once if you get a detailed understanding, then you can move ahead with the control testing, which involves test of design, test of operative effectiveness, everything. So it's a control testing is the, key part which takes a lot of time. Now we'll discuss in detail. Now, once of QA testing, control testing is done, there will be a QA team who will review the end-to-end documentation of control testing to see if we have followed all the standards, if whatever the judgment. Control testing is somewhere it's more of judgment and understanding the standards, combination of both understand judgment and maintaining that auditing standards across the board, right? So QA team will review whether all the standards are applied properly, whether the judgment is appropriate uh, while testing the controls. Now, once if QA is done, now they will prepare a draft report. They will issue even draft report will be reviewed by the management, senior partners, and all. Now, once if the draft report is good from the auditor's point of view, they will issue it to the client. Now, client will review the draft report. If they are good with that, they will sign client representation letter, which confirms or which shows, or you can consider client is okay with the draft report. Or if they have any changes, they will send those pointers to the auditor's team. They will modify the report or they will adjust the report accordingly. And if the final report is good, they will issue it to the client. Now, if they have any follow-up, definitely they will follow up once if they issue the report. Maybe they ask to, implement or remediate few of the controls, but the deadline is already completed. Now you may follow up with them after a month or after few days to see if they have management has taken action to remediate those controls. So this audit process slightly changes from each of the engagement. If you talk about ISO, the audit process might be a little bit different. Now, if it is from SOC 2 point of view, again, it is different from SOC's point of view, since it's a regulatory requirement. The process might change a little bit, but pretty much these are the steps followed for different types of audit projects, IT audit projects. So now you need to understand what is risk. So we had talked about risk, we talked about control, but let's understand what is risk. Risk refers to the potential for negative event or outcomes that could impact an organization's IT systems, data, and operations. It involves assessing the likelihood and potential impact of various threats and vulnerabilities. Any event that can impact the organizations in a negative way to meet in meeting the organization business objectives. If there is any potential event that can impact the business negatively, it is the risk. Now the company should have right measures in place or right controls in place to address such types of risks effectively. Right now, the control is nothing but measures and safeguards put in place to manage and mitigate risks effectively. Right. So now how these controls are implemented. Now measures, we everyone, even in our day-to-day life, we take a lot of measures, right, to prevent different type of risks. Even while driving, you wear helmet because there are potential risks that if you met with an accident, this helmet will help you. Some sort of you can't, 100, you can't give 100% surety that 100 helmet will help you to save your life if you met with an accident. You can't be 100% sure, but this helmet will help you at an optimum level, right? That's what this control is. Pretty much controls are measures or safeguards put in place to manage and mitigate risk within an organization's IT environment. Now, how the control is implemented, the process includes policies, procedures, technical mechanisms, and practices designed to ensure security, compliance, and efficient operations. Now, if I talk about control implementation point of view, every control, first they need to understand what is the risk. They should design a right control to ensure the control addresses the risks appropriately and effectively. Now, designing what involves in designing, having a proper documentation of the control, how it is going to be implemented, how the control is going to address the risk. Now, it's a simple statement of the control, how they are going to implement, or what is the control they're going to implement. They will document it in a policy which is going to help them as a standard for the organizer. Similarly, they will have some other document, process and procedure documentation, where they will give detailed step-by-step process how the control is going to operate to mitigate the risk or to address the risk effectively. This policy and procedures are pretty much documentation that the organization is going to maintain as a standard of different type of controls, right? Every company will have different type of policies, right? From HR to different technical policies. helps the organizations to build their standards to address or manage different types of risks with the right controls. Right now, the first thing is to maintain proper policies and procedures and ensuring that whatever the controls they promise or whatever the controls they mention, they written in their policies, all those must be implemented in real time. For instance, if I give an example, CC cameras, right? CC cameras will be part of their physical and environmental policy. If the policy says CC cameras should be installed in entries and exits and all the sensitive places or sensitive areas of the organization. It's a single statement that they're going to written in the policy, right? In the same way, they're going to have some detailed process in the process or procedure document where they will clearly mention what are the different areas they're going to implement or install these CC cameras. Now it's a detailed process. They haven't implemented it yet. They're just documenting how these CC cameras are fixed in the organization and how they are going to operate. Who is going to monitor those CC cameras? Now, if they maintain the footage or footage recording, how long they're going to retain that recordings. Now, all those will be detailed in their policy, procedure, or process documentation. Now, implementation is something they're going to install the CC cameras in their environment, in entries, exits, and different parts of the organization wherever they feel it's sensitive area. Now, implementation covers the actual installation of CC cameras, right? Now, design covers documentation of policies, process, and procedures, whereas implementation is actual implementation of the control in real time to operate and address the risk effectively. Now, operative effectiveness. They need to ensure it's not like they implement the control, they need to ensure that the control is operating effectively for whatever the period, rest of the period, maybe next 1 year, 2 year, or until the business continues to meet its objectives, right? So operative effectiveness is something, whatever the control they implement, they need to ensure the control is operating on a daily basis or operating on a continuous basis to meet the business objectives or address the risks effectively. Now, monitoring once in a while or on a continuous basis, the company should have a process in place to monitor if the controls are operating effectively. Whatever the controls they implement, they have to ensure that the controls are operating effectively. So this monitoring process helps them to review once in a while or some sort of process in place to monitor if the controls are operating effectively for on a continuous manner, right? So this is the whole life cycle. From there, you'll have internal audit and external audit, where they're going to perform internal audit to see if the control is designed effectively to address different types of risk, and if the control is operating effectively on a if operating effectively to address the risk effectively to meet the business objectives of the organization, right? So design, implementation process will be taken care pretty much by GRC team, whereas monitoring process will comes under, again there will be different monitoring tools, or there'll be internal audit performed, again they will be also going for external audit to see if design and operating effectiveness controls are effective. Now, based on, if I talk about the nature of the controls are having different types of nature based on how it is going to help or how it is going to address the risk, right? Preventive controls. We have three types of controls: preventive control, detective control, and corrective control. Preventive control is, the term itself says, it is preventive in nature. Like if I give an example, password. Now, password helps the systems to prevent from unauthorized users accessing the system or data within the system. Now, the nature is preventing, right? Now, there are different type of controls which help the organization to prevent different types of risks. All those controls falls under preventive controls. Similarly, there are a lot of controls which falls under detective controls. Now, the control helps them to detect different types of risk, like antivirus or vulnerability scans, penetration testing, or even you can say CC cameras, you detect the risk through using that specific control. Now, whereas corrective control, assume there was some sort of event which occurred which impacted the organization. Now, how are you going to, recover from it? How are you going to reduce the risk from whatever the based on the impact, right? Such kind of controls comes under corrective controls. If I give an example, let's consider there was a bank. Now you did a transaction from your bank account. Now, due to some issue, that transaction got failed, but the transaction haven't settled on time, or there was still you amount got credited from your account, but the other user haven't received the amount yet. Now, in such case, you will approach the bank and request, or you will raise the ticket saying that, hey, we have this specific issue with the transaction. Now they are going to resolve it. Now, this fixing of the issue is a corrective control. Such type of controls are referred as corrective controls, right? Now, based on the involvement of human interaction, the controls can be classified into manual or automated controls. Now, manual controls, if the control is operated through human interaction, right? Such kind of controls are referred as manual controls, and there are controls which can work or operate without human interaction. Such kind of controls are referred as automatic controls. Just give me a second. Great. Now, so if I give few examples of manual controls and automatic controls, we all know onboarding, right? We know security awareness trainings. So at the time of onboarding, each and every employee must complete security and awareness training. So this can't be something automated, right? You have to manually complete the training process, obviously. Now, automated process is something that like password management. You enter the password. If the password is incorrect, the control operates automatically, right? Now, if it is there are a lot of other controls like antivirus scans, which are configured to perform the scans automatically, right? Such kind of controls which operates without any human interactions are referred as automatic controls, right? So we'll talk about more such controls, but for now, if under IT audit, I mentioned earlier, IT audit is a very big umbrella. Under that umbrella, you have a lot of projects, right? SOX compliance, SOC 1, SOC 2, attestation engagements, ISO 27001. There are a lot of ISO, engagements. Then PCI DSS, third-party risk management, HIPAA, and high trust compliance. There are a lot of GDPR. There are a lot of compliances, right? Wherever you deal technology audits, or wherever the audit, if it includes technology space, then all those audits will be falling under IT audits, right? For now, I just documented very few projects which are SOX compliance, SOC 1, SOC 2, attestation engagements, ISO 27001, PCADSS, third-party risk management, HIPAA, and high trust. Now, SOX compliance. I'm not going to go in detail about all these projects, so maybe I'll share this document. You can go through by yourself. Now, let's understand different audit projects. Whether you perform financial audits or IT audits or operational audits, pretty much the audit procedures are pretty much same. Now it starts with inquiry. So these are different audit procedures. Now, whenever you're testing any specific control, the audit procedures include the combination of these procedures. Now, sometimes you perform inquiry. You can't just rely on inquiry. You need to have one other or two other audit procedures to conclude the overall testing process, right? Now, inquiry is something you talk to them, you ask whatever the relevant questions or whatever the questions that you like to ask to get more understanding about the process. Then you inspect the documentation to you along with the inquiry, you need to see how exactly the process is working, whether the controls are operate designed effectively. whether the controls are operating effectively, right? So inquiry helps you to gain more understanding about the process, whereas inspection of documents or inspection of tangible assets or observation, these audit procedures help you to understand if the control is actually designed properly and actually operating effectively. So you can't rely on inquiry. So you need multiple auditor procedures to conclude your control testing. You can obtain different type of documentation for each of the control. Sometimes policies, contracts, or reports. Sometimes you go to a physical audit where you can see if the assets or like CC cameras or different type of hardwares are implemented properly, right? Now, sometimes you get testimonial statements from individuals, electronic data, logs, direct observation, trends, statistical analysis, visual records, multiple pieces reinforcing, like corroborate, you combination of all these things sometimes, right? So most of the time what we get is documents or some sort of screenshots, Excel spreadsheets, or logs. You'll get these type of documentation in the most of the situations. Now we'll discuss about test of design and test of operation. So whenever the company build their policies or prepares and their policies and procedure documents, the control should be designed in a such a way the control should be able to address the risk appropriately and effectively. Now, if the control is designed not appropriately, now, what is the use of implementing the control? Now, that is it should be able to address the risk effectively and meet the business object. Sometimes, they implement the control, but still the risk is not addressed effectively. In that case, they have to redesign the control. So whenever we perform the audit, the first thing we are going to check is whether the control design is effective or not. Now, the control, whatever the control they implement, the implemented control should be able to address the risk effectively. Now, as an auditor, I'll check if the control design is effective, whether the risk is addressed appropriately and effectively or not. If the risk is not addressed properly, then the control design itself is not implement. The design itself is not good. It means that there is a gap with the design, right? Now, assume the control is designed appropriately and addressing the risk effectively, then the control should be operating effectively on a continuous basis, right? Now, test of operative effectiveness is something where you check whether the operative effectiveness of the control is effective or not. It means that control is consistently or continuously working to meet the or address the risk effectively. Now, they should implement the right control to address the risk. Now, the control should operate continuously and effectively to address the risk on a continuous basis. Now, that's what. In test of design, we'll check just whether the control is designed appropriately, whereas in test of operative effectiveness, you check whether the control is operating effectively, right? Now, I'll tell you how we are going to test, test of design and test of operative effectiveness as well. Now, so we'll talk about sampling methodology a little bit, after maybe discussing about access management and all. But for now, we'll move on to the IT general controls part. Now, access management. Now we have discussed about organization, why they need to implement right controls in place to address different types of risk. So we understand different types of risk: operational risk, security risk, financial risk, compliance risk, and technology risks. Right now, we know what is control, different types of controls. So to conclude, to manage risks effectively across the organizations, companies implement IT general controls at an organization level and IT application controls at a application level. Now, you need to understand, we discussed about controls. Now, controls are implemented at different layers, right? Now, at an entity level, they will be having general controls. And again, for each of the application or each of the system, if I talk about SAP, you will have different set of controls for SAP. If I talk about the cloud platform like Azure, they'll be having different set of controls. And if you see from financial audit point of view, financial reporting point of view, the kind of controls the organization implement is a little bit different, and the controls the organization implement to safeguard the information of the organization is different. Now, if I give two examples, there is a company, publicly listed company in US, where they need to meet SOX compliance requirements. Now, the kind of controls they implement is internal controls over financial reporting to address all the financial related risks, right? But whereas there is a cloud service provider, now they need to prove that they have right controls in place to safeguard the information stored in the cloud platform. Now the kind of controls they implement to meet the business objectives is different from the typical SOX compliance related company, right? So at both from SOX point of view and SOC 2 point of view, they'll have different type of controls from at an organization level and on a specific platform or at an application level or at a system level. Right now, we need to understand both from IT general controls point of view and IT applications point of view, but we are going to discuss only about IT general controls at this moment. Now, what are IT general controls? IT general controls are foundational controls that apply to all systems and IT environments. If I talk about examples, access management, who are all the users accessing information within the organization, or who are all the users or employees, or you can say people having access to their physical environment and logical environment of the organization, both physical access and logical access. Physical access includes user entering the organization premises, maybe a badge or RFID, right? So if I talk about logical access, whoever the user having access to their systems, their IT environment, maybe using user ID and password, which we refer as credentials, right? Now, all those things comes under user access management. Now, change management, if at all they need to change some configurations or they need to upgrade their application, or if they wanted to migrate from one application to different application, they should have a standard process. They need to ensure they have right controls, SDLC controls or change management controls in place to ensure they address different types of risk related to changes or to prevent unauthorized changes deploying. Okay. Now, all these controls comes under change management, whereas backups and recovery, we all know backup. We use it in our WhatsApp. Even we use Google Drive or iCloud to store our data, right? To back up our data. Similarly, organization deal with huge data. It is important that they maintain the data or prevent from loss, right? They need to backup either in cloud or through servers. So they should have right controls to ensure they back up their data. If there is any situation that, due to some disruption or due to some unfortunate event, they should be able to recover the data or restore the data from the backup storage system or from the cloud environment. Now, the recovery steps comes under business continuity and disaster recovery process. You should have right controls in place for capacity management and business continuity and disaster recovery process as well. Now, system operations are, as an organization, you will have different type of issues in your day-to-day BAU. So you should have right controls in place like incident management or batch processing. So even in fact, backups also comes under IT operation controls or system operation controls. So altogether, two different controls implemented to ensure that your BAU is as usual running on a continuous basis to meet the business objective. All those controls falls under system operations or IT operations. Now, IT application controls, these are specific to a specific application, right? Now, if you are using any specific application for procurement, how do you order the products, or how do you process transactions in that application? Now, you should have different controls, or you should have different measures in place. You should have a different set of process for that specific application, right? Now, that is from application standpoint. IT application controls are specific to individual systems or applications and ensure data is accurate, complete, and authorized during processing. To, to give it simple, to give a simple example, let's consider phone pay, right? Now, if I wanted to give, if you consider your mobile device as a overall environment, IT environment for you, now you need to have controls like password or to change configuration. It's all depends upon you. But if you're using any specific application, the application should have a different set of control. Assume you're using phone pay. Now it should have its own password, right? Now, if you wanted to process any transaction, now you have to use your PIN, UPI PIN. Now, if you process any transaction, there might be possibility it may fail. Now you should be able to reach out to the phone pay and get the issue resolved. Now, the whole set of controls implemented at a specific application will be referred as IT application controls. Now, input validation, automated calculation, three-way matching, audit trails, transaction logging. Like PhonePe is just an example, but you can see any application which you are using, like Swiggy or Google Pay, any bank related application. Everyone will have different sort of controls to address different types of risk. Now, what is the risk from application standpoint? If I talk about risk, now what happens if your friend accesses your phone pay and send money from your account? So obviously they can't do it. Definitely, if they don't have access to your mobile device, they can't transfer money from your phone pay, right? But still, there is that risk that if you don't have right password or if you don't have UPI pin, these are the controls you implement the phone pay application implemented to address the risk, right, to prevent such type of risk, right? So those are the different controls to give a summarized example. So risks are everywhere. The company should have necessary controls to address all those risks effectively. Now we have different type of controls: preventive, detective, corrective, manual, and automated based on the human interaction and if it is an automated process. Now, most of the time, automated process includes the right configurations to run the process automatically. Now, everything is based on configurations. So together, ITGCs and ITACs form the backbone of a strong internal control framework. They protect systems, ensure data integrity, and help organizations operate with confidence. Right? This is the summary of the basic introduction. This is not a very high level, but definitely, this summarizes what is the importance of ITGCs and ITACs for any organization to meet their business objectives. Now, let's talk about access management in detail. Now, access management, if again, access management is also, it's a vast domain. If I talk about from SOX point of view, you'll have very few controls. But if I talk about high trust, PCI DSS, which these frameworks are very complex. Now, under access management itself, you'll have, huge set of controls, almost 50 to 60 controls under access management. But if I talk from SOX standpoint of SOX Sarbanes-Oxley Act standpoint, you will hardly find 5 to 6 controls, right? Now I'm going to cover from general ITGC's point of view, but there are a lot of other controls that you need to learn from under access management. Similarly, every domain which we are going to cover from SOX point of view, these are the basic controls that we are going to implement. But if you see the critical frameworks, the complex frameworks like PCADSS or high trust, the kind of controls you will see is almost from 300 to somewhere around 1500, 1600 controls based on the scope. Now I believe everyone should understand uh, at a high level. It's not just learning the basic control, but the key objective is of this session is not to give technical understanding or in detailed in depth of technical. The objective is not to give in depth understanding about any of this domain. The objective is to give you an approach of control testing, because To get a technical understanding, maybe you can use chat GPT, or you can see some, security, information security videos, or any specific domain. If you talk about access management, there'll be a 1 or 2 hour lengthy videos from technical understanding point of view. But the objective is to give you an approach from auditing point of view. How are you going to test any specific control? If I take any specific control, how are you going to start with the testing procedures? What are the different action items that you need to be performing to see or examine if the control is designed effectively, and to see if the control is operating effectively? Now, understanding that from documentation point of view, and summarize, how do you summarize it? Because there are a lot of people who got stuck with this specific piece. How do you perform test of design? How do you select samples? How do you perform test of operative effectiveness? How do you actually document it as per the auditing standards? And how do you summarize the results? That is the core, right? That is the core of IT audit. Now, that is the core key objective of this session, right? Let's talk about, few access management controls, and we'll talk how do you perform control testing, right? So now under access management from SOC standpoint, we have few controls, which are provisioning, deprovisioning, user access reviews, high privileged access, password management, right? Let's start with provisioning. Provisioning is nothing but creating access for any of the user within the organization. Maybe at the time of joining for new users, access should be created, right? Now, maybe sometimes user might change from one role or one department to a different department. Now, access rights should be changed accordingly. All these things comes under, users provisioning. User provisioning for new users or transferred users. Now, the step-by-step process of creating access is referred as user access provisioning, which starts with access request. I believe most of you already know. If you are working professional, if you need access, or assume when you onboard it to any organization, the access provisioning process starts with access request, maybe from the HR or the reporting manager. The manager or the HR team will raise an access request for the respective user, mentioning what are the different access required for the user based on their roles and responsibilities. Now, the access request is raised through a ticketing system, or through an email, or some sort of form. Now, how they raise the access request may change from one organization to another organization. Now, you really need to apply your judgment. Now, if I give an example, if a tech-based company, most of the time they will use ticketing systems like ServiceNow, Jira, or different other ticketing systems, right? But if I give an example of DMart or any some sort of market, or let's take some XYZ Mart. Now, maybe whoever the employees works there, they may not have good understanding about ticketing systems. Now, having ticketing system is a little bit difficult or complex for them, so they may implement different process, but the process is same. The objective or the risk they are going to address is same, but the process they implement to address the risk is different. Now, they can use access request forms instead of tickets. They use physical access request form. I will show you how access request form looks like, right? Access request form, where they will mention what are the different access they need to provide for the user. Now, they will get the manager approval. They will submit it to the respective IT department to get the access. Now, wherever the process, how they implement the control might change from one organization to another organization, based on the kind of business they are into, based on the kind of environment they are, the kind of IT environment they are having, right? Now, wherever it is, the access provisioning process starts with access request, which can be initiated either by HR team or reporting manager. Now, once if the access request is created, it will be routed to respective business head or manager to get the necessary approvals. Let's list out, these are the three applications that user should have access to perform their day-to-day roles and responsibilities. Now, the HR will raise the ticket, or reporting manager will raise the ticket. Now, within their policy, they should mention who approves the access. Maybe if HR raised the request, reporting manager should approve the access. Or sometimes if reporting manager raise the access request, the request itself considered as approval because manager is the authorized person who should approve. Now he himself if raised the tickets, you may not need approvals, but however, you still need to look into their policy, who can raise the request and who can approve the access request. Now, if they get enough approvals or necessary approvals for the access request, then the ticket or an access request is routed to the IT department where they will review the ticket. They see what are the access requested, what are the approvals provided, whether approvals are appropriate to provide the access requested. Now, the IT team validates the access request documentation or access request ticket or email or access request form, and they will create the access, right? Now, access request, access approval, access creation. These are the steps involved in access provisioning. Now, this is the process. Now, auditing point of view, if I talk about auditing, you won't be part of access request process. Now your role is to verify if the standard process is followed effectively. Whatever the process they are following, if that process is followed effectively, that is the role. Now I'm an auditor. I'm going to ask the client, do you have right provisioning process in your organization? If yes, who requests the access request? Who approves it? Then who creates it? Now, what type of ticketing system are you using? What is the process, right? Who are the people involved, right? Do you maintain segregation of if HR raise the request, then who approves the request, right? Now, what are the different types of access you will be granting? What are the different application you are creating access for? Do you need any business approvals or do you need any application owner or business owner approvals? Now, what is you that you main documented in your policy? What is that you documented in your procedure? Now, all those should be inlined and should be able to address the risk of unauthorized access, right? Along with that, you need to ensure that approval is provided before creating that. That is the key objective. That's what you need to understand the control. Let's go to the controls, but from provisioning point of view, understand that access creation process is called provisioning, which starts from access request, access approval, and access creation, right? So these are the steps that should be followed. Now, deprovisioning similarly access revocation or disabling access for any of the user. If I talk about from physical access point of view, you need to collect the ID card or RFID or any relevant badges from the employee before they exit the organization. Now, in any organization, there will be giving exit notification, which starts with exit notification. The manager and the HR team will get the notification either through an email if it is an automated process where the employee should submit their resignation. If it is a manual process, the employee itself, send an email to HR and the manager about their, resignation. Now, once if they get the notification, they will raise the ticket to the IT department. So this is the so and so date. This specific employee is going to be relieved from the organization. So please revoke the access accordingly. So they will send an email. The IT team will have a notification or um, will remove the access accordingly. Maybe if they have an automated process, they will get the notifications accordingly to remove the access. But if it is a manual process, the HR team or the manager will raise the ticket to the IT department to revoke the access in a timely manner. If I talk about timely manner, most of the organizations, they follow standard practice that they revoke the access within 24 hours of the employee exit. Most we refer from US point of view, we refer it as termination. If the user is terminated, whether it is a you know voluntary termination or involuntary termination, so access should be revoked in within 24 hours, right? So exit notification, the access revocation request will be sent from HR team or the manager. Now IT team will remove the access. This is the standard process. Now similarly, user access reviews. For a smaller size organization, maybe you may not need user access reviews, but if there are a lot of users, sometimes you may miss to revoke the access at the time of termination, or sometimes user role got changed, the person moved from one designation to different designation or one department to a different department. Now access right may need to be aligned as per the updated role or the transfer role, right? Sometimes you may miss to remove the access which is not necessary for the new role. So it is very important that the organization reviews the access rights of the each of the user to see that access for the terminated user or terminated employee is disabled or removed in a timely manner, and access for the transferred user or role changes must be updated as per their current roles and responsibilities. So once in a while, like for privileged access, like administrative roles, most of the organizations perform user access reviews on a monthly basis, whereas for normal general users, they perform user access reviews on a quarterly basis, right? Few organizations, they will also perform once in 6 months or once in a year as well, but it's all changes based on the criticality of their user access identity and access man, based on the number of users they are having, based on the criticality of the transactions or criticality of the data they are handling, right? So every company, they will prepare their own standard, they will prepare their own policies. Now whatever the policies they build, they need to ensure they follow that process, because policies and procedures are the standards they implement to meet their business objectives and to address different risks, right? Now, when I say regular basis, it can be a monthly or it can be quarterly, it can be annually as well. So you need to see the policy, you need to see what policy says and what is the control actually implemented. Both should be aligned. Okay. Now it starts with access review initiation. Let's talk about how this process starts. Now the complaints team or access management team will send a notification to each of the department to perform a review for each of the process or each of the application or each of the department. Now assume a specific department has 10 employees. Now, the manager should validate whether the access is appropriate for their role. Whatever the current access rights the user is having, they will validate and they will approve the access. Now, it starts with access review initiation. Then the manager will validate and certify whether access is appropriate or not. If at all there were any findings, or if at all if there is any unnecessary access noted as a part of review, they will raise a ticket to remove the access removal request. Now the IT team will remove the access. The whole process will be completed for each and every user within the organization, which we will refer it as user access reviews. This is performed on a monthly basis for administrative users. Please remember this. This is very important for, since administrative users will have elevated access or high privileges. Now user access reviews are performed more frequently for such users, whereas for general users, most of the companies perform on a quarterly basis or once in 6 months or annually. Now, high privileged access. High privileged access you can consider as administrative access or access elevated access compared to the normal users or general users. Now, whenever you provide access for privileged access, always the organization should ensure they maintain least privilege. Only access required to perform their roles and responsibilities should be provided. High privileged access is granted strictly based on job role and business need, ensuring users receive only minimum access required to perform their day-to-day duties, right? Now they need to ensure that they follow this very strictly of least privilege. If any access is not relevant to their day-to-day roles and responsibilities, then such type of access should be disabled immediately, right? In fact, even if you are providing or creating access, administrative access for any of the user, you should be obtaining approvals from the business heads or respective, higher department. So similarly, um, it is something elevated from the day to normal users, right? So even approvals, only authorized persons like senior management should be approving access for administrative users. Now how do you know who should approve it? So you will understand all this as a part of your walkthrough. You inquire with the you know SME or the respective point of contact. You ask them who are the different type of users who will get privileged access or administrative access? What are the different permissions granted for each type of user? Now, who can request access for such type of privileged permissions or functions? Now, who are the authorized persons to approve such type of access? Right? What are the different approvals required for such type of privileged access requests? Now, all these things you need to understand during your walkthrough, or you can also refer to their policy and procedure documents. Right? Both walkthrough and the policy and process should be aligned each other. But pretty much, you focus on walkthrough because definitely, walkthrough makes more sense. But if there is, if you need to understand what is the standard they are following, you can always refer to their policy and procedure. Sometimes what happens during walkthrough, they tell something, but again after a few days, if you wanted to reconfirm, they might say some other thing. Because if they don't have standard process in place, they might sometimes you might end up having some sort of confusion. But you can always refer to their policy and procedure document to understand what is the standard they are maintaining, okay, or following. Now, for privileged access or privileged functions, whatever the actions they are going to, or whatever the activities they are going to perform on a day-to-day basis, all those actions should be documented, like in the form of logs and tracked and reviewed on a regular basis. Right? That's what all privileged activities are logged and monitored through centralized logging solutions to ensure accountability and traceability. So they will maintain the logs similar to our phone logs. If you receive any calls or if you call someone, everything will be logged in your phone logs, right? Call logs. Similarly, whatever the activities they perform in that system using the privileged functions, all those will be logged as user access logs, right? Now, whatever the privileged functions, whatever the privileged activities they perform, all those logs will be generated and documented. Now, once in a while, all those logs should be reviewed to see if there was any suspicious activity or unauthorized activity. Now, privileged access logs are reviewed periodically, and any unnecessary or outdated privileged access is revoked promptly in accordance with the access governance policies. Now, you'll also mention, how frequently they should perform privileged access logs review. You'll see, the control in their access management policy or identity and access management policy. Now, password management, we all know what is password management. We use it for all the applications in our mobile, or in fact, if you are a working professional, you better know, like we use password for the system. Now, individual applications, if you are using any cloud platform, you use a separate password for your cloud platform or each of the application. Now, sometimes you will have a single sign-on for all the applications integrated with SSO. In such case, you need to see the configurations. What are the different applications configured or integrated with the SSO, and what is the password management policy applied for that SSO. Now, whatever it is the case, now password management, they should have the right controls in place to ensure that they use strong passwords, and they also have different controls in place. What happens if someone uses incorrect password for multiple times? Now, how frequently they should change the password? Can they use the same password as last time? Now, all these things will be considered under password management. Now, password complexity. Enforce strong password rules including minimum length and use of uppercase, lowercase, numbers, and special characters. We all know, so password should be minimum of 8 characters or 14 characters. Minimum one uppercase should be used. Numeric numbers should be used. Minimum one lowercase letter should be used. Special characters should be. This is complexity. So what happens if you're not creating password without these you know rules? Obviously, the system won't consider the password. It will ask to recreate the password. It will simply say, it will show you alert, or it will give a notification that the password policy rules haven't met, or password created is not aligned with the password policy. Please recreate the password. Right? Now, whenever you're creating the password, The password should always meet the password complexity requirements of the organization or password policy of the organization. Now, what is password age? When I create the password, you can't use the same password for next 10 years, right? Maybe sometimes your friend may see your password, or sometimes your someone, your peer or colleagues may see your password. It is always important that you update password as frequently as possible. So password age should be minimal, maybe 60 to 90 days. Require periodic password changes by setting a maximum validity period. Most of the time it is 60 to 90 days for most of the applications, or you will receive a notification in your email that your password is about to expire in next 10 days. Please change your password. So once if you receive notification, you have to update the password. Now this policy enforces that you have to update the password or change the password within every 90 days. Otherwise, your system will be locked. Again, you need to reach out to your IT team to create the new password. Again, you will get a new password. Otherwise, your system will be locked. A password history. You can't use the same password as last time, or you can't use the same password which you used in the last 3 months or 6 months or last 3 times or 5 times. So, however, the company enforces password history policy, maybe last remembering last 10 passwords or last 5 passwords, right? It changes from company to company, but prevent users from reusing their previous passwords by maintaining a password history policy. So maybe you can't use last password or last 3 passwords or last 5 passwords or 10 passwords, right? So account lockout policy. Now assume you entered incorrect password for 5 times. The system will automatically lock out. In fact, it happens with our mobile device as well, right? So if you give incorrect password for more than 5 times, it will lock the device for next 15 minutes or 30 minutes. Again, if you give incorrect password, maybe the system will log out. Now you need to reach out to the IT department where they will recreate the password if you are the legitimate user, right? If any use, sometimes what happens, um, if there are kids in your house, they might take your mobile device and they enter incorrect password for many times, the system will automatically lock. The device will automatically lock, right? So it's the same case with even different applications or even the your laptop. If you use incorrect password for multiple times, the system will automatically lock up. So that policies all should be also there to prevent unauthorized access. And blacklisted passwords, sometimes the company enables such kind of configurations or rules to prevent using certain passwords which are very common, right? So maybe your name or your date of birth or some sort of common names like India, right? Very common, which most people can easily understand or remember, or easily easily they can predict what kind of password you are using. So the configuration, the password management policy is also enforcing blacklisted passwords where you can't use such common or weak passwords. Like sometimes I used to remember that, back in 20 years, my mom, um, for our mobile phone, we used to use 1234. So which is very easy, right? So as an organization, they should not recommend such kind of passwords. So they block such kind of weak passwords or common passwords which can be easily compromised. So multi-factor authentication, we all know we use multi-factor authentication for our mobile device as well. So multi-factor authentication is an additional layer of security along with the password. Now you receive a token through your different third-party multi-factor authentication tools or two-factor authentication tools where you need to enter the token, or when you enter the one-time password to complete your authentication process, right? So you enter your password. Once after entering the password, you need to enter additional as an additional layer of security. It will ask you to provide OTP or enter OTP or token. You need to approve the token. I think most of we are using it, right? So that additional layer of security is referred as multi-factor authentication. Now, all this together, access management covers provisioning, the step-by-step process of creating access, deprovisioning, step-by-step process of removing access, high privileged access, user access reviews, then password management. Now, let's understand from control testing point of view. We already discussed control testing involves, right from understanding the process, verifying or understanding what are the controls implemented, with whatever the controls implemented, are these addressing the risks effectively, different types of risk effectively to meet the business objectives. Now, once if the controls are implemented, are these controls operating effectively on a continuous basis to meet the business objectives? These are the different steps involved. Now, performing walkthrough, test of design, and test of operating effectiveness. These are the different steps involved in control testing. Now, as a part of control testing, you need to understand few of the key documents which are referred as RACM, risk and control matrix. Few people refer it as control matrix, few people refer it as control matrix or risk control matrix, and most of the companies like Big Fours and other consulting firms refer it as RACM or ACM or risk and control matrix. It's nothing but a repository of whatever the controls they implement in their organization, they maintain the record in a spreadsheet. They'll have a unique code, control ID or control number for each of the control, and they will have a risk. What is the control? What is the risk the control is trying to address? And what is the control description? What is the frequency? What is the nature of the control? Preventive, detective, or corrective? What whether it is automated or manual, right? So now everything will be documented for all the controls in a specific repository referred as RACM, risk and control matrix. Now DRL, just ignore this part. Seems like this is not updated. So these are the key documentation that every auditor should remember if you are specifically into ITGC, right? Risk and control matrix. Now, DRL is documents request list, or sometimes referred as PBC, provided by client list, or simply few people refer it as request list. Request list is something, a list provided to the client requesting for different documents, maybe employee listing, maybe policy and procedure documents, or some sort of screenshots. Now, whatever the documents you wanted or you need to obtain to complete your audit procedures, you'll prepare that list and you will send it to the client, which is referred as whatever the list you are going to send to the client requesting for different type of documents is referred as documents request list or provided by client list. Now, populations and samples. You need to obtain populations. You need to select samples, sample selection sheet, population listing, evidence, different types of evidence or artifacts. Now, work papers. Now, you need to prepare a spreadsheet or lead sheet, which most of the companies refer it as work papers, right? Now, the final audit report. These are the key documents that you need to remember when you are working on any ITGC control testing projects. Right? Let's go through, each of the document. So I didn't create a dedicated sheet for each. I consolidated and created different tabs for, each of the document. Let's start with, RACM, risk and control matrix. Now, ITGC is a huge domain where you will have a lot of domains. If you see from security standpoint or if you see from a cybersecurity point of view, right? But if you talk about SOX ITGCs, you'll deal with, only few domains, but these are the different domains. You'll have access management, asset management, batch registration, business continuity, and disaster recovery process, capacity and performance planning, change management. You'll have cloud security related controls, compliance, continuous monitoring, cryptography, a lot of controls, right? So all these things will come under ITGCs, but not from SOX standpoint. But let's talk about access management. Now, this whole document list of controls is referred as risk and control matrix. This is nothing but a repository of controls where it will have a specific control ID or control reference or control number and a specific domain and specific control area, control description. You'll have a lot of details, but for time being, I just document a few details. But you'll have a lot of other details like control frequency, what is the risk that the control is going to address, then what is the nature of the control, what is the type of control, what is the population used, what are the different testing steps used to test the control. A lot of details will be provided. Depends upon the company how they maintain the control matrix, risk and control matrix. But few companies will have only these details. Few company will have a lot of other details, whatever I mentioned earlier, right? So it changes from organization to organization, but consider this repository of controls will be maintaining in a spreadsheet in most of the organizations, which is referred as RACM or risk and control matrix, or RCM, or simply referred as control matrix as well. Now, PBC list or DR. Now, this is the type of documents you'll have, hundreds of requests, maybe huge list of documents you will be requesting at a multiple paces. Maybe initially right after kickoff meeting, you will ask for policies and procedure documentation. You will ask for the populations like new employees, existing employees, list of servers, workstation, sorry, servers, workstations, terminated employees, list of changes, configuration changes, application changes. You'll have all the list. You can see, for instance, I'll give an example. Provide the most current employee listing, including name, department, division, job title, and hire date. Now it means nothing but employee roster or employee listing, which will be provided by HR department. Now, similarly, you'll have a lot of requests. You will also have point of contact. Maybe if I missed, you can also mention who is the point of contact, maybe HR department or IT department. You can also specify who is the responsible person to provide document relevant evidence, right? Now, this huge list of documentation you request from the client is referred as PBC, provided by client list, or documents request list. Now you will share this document to the client and they will start providing these maybe if you are having any cloud platform, they will upload all those documents to the cloud platform. Or if you have SharePoint, if you give access to you know your SharePoint, they will upload the documents. Sometimes they won't upload their documents to your environment. They will upload in their tool, and they will provide access to you, and you can download documentation from their SharePoint or their platform. Okay, so but overall, this is how DRL or documents request list or PBC list looks like, and these are the different documents the client will be providing, whatever you requested in the DRL. Now, as a part of your control testing, the first thing is to understand their process, to understand their environment properly. To understand their environment, obviously you need to perform walkthrough, which is nothing but an inquiry or interview with the SME or point of contact for each of the domain. Now you have a lot of domains. We have discussed, we have mentioned a lot of domains, but if I talk about specifically access management, so we have provisioning, deprovisioning, user access reviews, high privileged access, password management. Now all these controls, you will mention it as related controls. These are the different controls under access management. Now, who is the point of contact? We have Revant, who is IT, head. Now we'll schedule a call with IT head. We'll discuss about all these controls, right? Now, Revant, if you are on call, just unmute yourself. Let's do a simulation. I'm going to ask you a few questions about different controls you implemented in your organization for access management.
Sure, sure.
Great. Now, Revant, I know that you are a team of 100 people. Now, how do you ensure that you have standard access management process? If I give in detail, how do you create access for any of the new user? What is the step-by-step process?
So starting from hiring process, once the hiring is done and wrapped up, so the HR manager will request for access which will be routed to the reporting manager of where the employee would report to. So once the reporting manager approves, it will again route it to the IT team where they will go through this and they'll create the access.
Okay. So do you use any ticketing system or how is it? How do you document this access request and approval process?
So we use Jira
Okay.
uh, for ticketing. So we actually use the ticketing system to document all of this.
Okay. So do you have along other than manager, do you need any other approvals like business head approvals or any other additional approvals for any specific like privileged access and all?
Yes, depending on the roles and responsibilities. If it's like a, let's say if it's like a analyst or excuse me, if it's like an analyst or associate level, so there is no need of such approvals. But if you are hiring into hierarchies where there'll be managers, where they'll be dealing with a lot of sensitive information, and where they'll be having access to a lot of sensitive information, in such scenarios, yeah, we need approval.
Additional approval, right?
Yes.
Now, who can approve such type of access?
From
Privileged access or high elevated access?
like CEOs, CFOs, COOs, or the department head, depending on the roles and responsibilities of the employee that got hired at the end of the day.
It depends upon, the level of permissions and,
Yeah,
access rights they need to perform their
that's
roles and responsibilities.
that's
Great.
true. That's true.
Okay. Now, how the, termination process works and how the access will be disabled or removed for any of the exit user or terminated user.
So normally, there are two kinds of terminations that happen. One is where the employee requests for resignation, and depending on the time that they've served in this company, so they will have to serve a notice period of 1 month. If they are working here for more than 5 years, so it might be for 3 months. And few of them just straight away, quit the job, ghost. If you say ghost us, and they're not to be seen. That's one part, and the other part is where the management will give them a notice, like a month notice prior to termination. So in both these cases, all of this will be routed to the IT team with the resignation date or the termination date, where they'll be no longer requiring the access. So on the day of their termination, so within like before about 24 hours or so, the SLAs. So before then, the access must be removed. The IT team will remove the access.
Now, who initiates this, termination process or access deprovisioning or revocation process? Do you raise any specific ticket or do you send any email or is it an automated process which creates alert to the IT team?
So it is an automated process which will create an alert to the IT team, and as well as the reporting manager will email the IT team with the essentials, just
But
to be sure.
but do you have any standard process of whether it is like what does your access management policy says? Is it an automated process or is it mandated that your manager request access deprovisioning or revocation request to the IT team?
N- No, it's an automated process.
Is it so if like what kind of tool you are using to create that alert to the IT team? Or do you
We use
have
the
the
same.
documentation we can see for the users?
Yes, yes. I've provided you documents of user listing.
Right. Okay. So now, how frequent do you perform user access? I know you are a small team of 100 employees, but however, most of the organizations they practice, user access reviews once in a quarter. Considering your small, employee size, do you still perform user access reviews or how is it?
Yeah, we still perform user access reviews because we need to be sure on whether the terminated users have access or not. Because at the end of the day, humans often tend to make mistakes. So we will have to review it periodically. And even though we are a team of 100 members, which is not like a big team, we still do it every quarterly just to be sure.
Okay, every quarter. Any documentation of reconciling or validation of user access rights for each of the users?
Yes, we do maintain every other document.
Okay, great. So you mentioned you perform user access reviews quarterly. So is it the same for administrative users and normal users, or do you perform user access reviews for privileged users more frequently?
Privileged users will be probably done for every 2 months, because we cannot be wrong with the kind of access they have, because they have access to lot of sensitive data. So we are very thorough with doing the privileged access reviews, so that we won't breach, or we won't fall into any kind of trouble, by providing access to the one that's been terminated.
Great. Now, I just want so far, whatever understood, you have a standard process in place, but from administrative access point of view, do you maintain logs of administrative user access? Do you review those logs periodically?
Yes, we do review those logs, because the logs are one that give us an idea of when they logged in, when they're logging out. All of this information will be available. So we are pretty thorough with reviewing all of those logs. We document those logs, and we review those logs just to see if there is any like vulnerability.
Okay. Now, who is going to perform such kind of reviews?
These reviews.
Yes, privileged access logs reviews.
Privileged access, we have these IT team, and we also have the internal audit team, where both of them collaborate together and work on this access management issues.
Okay, great. Now we talked about user access reviews, right? You mentioned user access reviews are performed once in 2 months for administrative roles, and for normal users, you perform UAR on a quarterly basis. Now, who initiates this user access review process, and who actually validate and approve user access rights for each of the users?
Hello.
Yeah. So who approves this when you mentioned user access reviews, right? Now, who
Mm.
approves or validate the user access reviews, user
The
access
reviews
rights?
when the reviews are done by the internal audit team, we have specific specialized internal audit teams, where the management of the audit team will segregate each and every person into, assigning them for a particular department. So one such team will be looking into this access management, where they'll do all the necessary checks with access provisioning, deprovisioning, user access reviews of privileged access, as well as password management, to see that we have no vulnerabilities, and rectify if we do have any gaps involved, so that we'll rectify, and erase such gaps, like, or eradicate such gaps in coming future.
Okay, sorry if I'm not wrong on my understanding. So user access reviews are initiated by the IT team or compliance team, but there will be a dedicated department heads who will be validating user access rights for each of the users, right?
That's correct.
Great. So I think pretty much good with the access management walkthrough. Now, please provide. We will be also have a dedicated call on performing walkthrough for each of the sample. For provisioning, maybe you'll have the respective point of contact added to the call. We can schedule the call maybe sometime later, but have the
Yes.
IT point of contact. I think there was some other guy who attended as a part of kickoff call. We'll have walkthrough for each of the sample for provisioning. Assume let's select a sample of one user. Let's perform walkthrough for that user, how the access request was created, who approved it, and when was the access created, right? Let's perform walkthrough for one new user, now one transferred user. Similarly for terminated employees, how the access termination alert has been sent to the IT team, whether access logs there were no access attempts after the termination date. So let's see for one sample user for provisioning, deprovisioning, and we will be also requesting documentation of UAR for one of the quarters to see how you maintain the process, right? Additionally, we have shared our PBC list or documents request list. Please provide the list of all the administrators for all your applications and systems, right? Okay.
Sure.
Great. So that's how, usually we perform. Thanks, Raven. Thanks a lot for your help. Now, this is how we used to perform walkthroughs for any of our, access management walkthroughs. But maybe we'll go in detail. They will share the screen. They will explain what are the different applications used, what are the, different permissions granted for each of the users or each of the administrative users, right? We'll go in detail. Usually most of the walkthroughs, they will share the screen, they will show their applications, their different types of users, generic users or group accounts or service accounts, different permissions granted for each of the administrative accounts. We'll perform walkthrough in detail, and we will take screenshots during the walkthrough. We will also write walkthrough notes, something like access requests are created within Jira. HR team will be creating the access. Reporting manager will approve the access. If it is privileged access, higher senior management will approve that. Will take a screenshots from walkthrough. Will along with the screenshot, we will write a running notes and we'll polish it later after the walkthrough. But we will ensure that we perform walkthrough for a sample of one user for each of the control, or for sample of one for each of the control. Right. So once we are good with the walkthrough, we'll have a decent understanding about the process and we'll go ahead with the control test. Right now, once if you, once if you start the control testing, pretty much, you will understand what type of documents you need to obtain to test a specific control. Right. For instance, we'll go through, what type of documents we are going to obtain for provisioning control, how to test provisioning control. Right now, let's start. So this is one of the templates. This is can be pretty much same for most of the organization, but this changes for from one form to another form. Right? Few companies, they will have a dedicated work paper for test of design and a different work paper for test of operative effectiveness. From few of the project like SOC 2 type 2, they may not test of design. They will directly go for type test of operative effectiveness. Since type 1, they will cover test of design. Now from SOC's point of view, um, they will maintain test of design a separate work paper. Once if they start test of operative effectiveness, they will have a different work paper. But it changes from one entity, one audit form to another audit form. Now there is no issue, how they can definitely, there is no problem in maintaining two different work papers for test of design and test of operative effectiveness. But sometimes, few companies will have same work paper for covering both test of design and test of operative effectiveness. It is completely fine, absolutely fine. So whatever the process they follow. But most of the time, these are the required details that you need to fill in while preparing the work paper, right? So entity name is nothing but the client name for whom you are going to perform audit. Now, client name, for instance, let's take an example of ABC, ABC Technologies, right? Now, you need to fill in all these details. So you need to ensure that the work paper is looking good. It should be formal. I see, sometimes few of our students, they create work papers with different rangoli colors. So it should be very decent and formal. So now audit period. So audit is performed for a specific period most of the time. But if from SOC 1 point of view, so SOC 1 type 1 or SOC 2 type 1. So you will also perform audit for a point in time for a specific date, or at a specific date, which is referred as point in time. So in that case, you will write a specific date. But most of the other audits like SOX engagements or SOC 2 type 2 or SOC 1 type 2, you'll perform audit for a specific period. Now, from internal audit point of view, if I talk, companies perform internal audits once in a quarter, but whereas from external audit point of most of the companies, they perform audit for 1 year, but it changes from type of audit, whether whatever the period, maybe sometimes they will do for 9 months, then again they will do uh, additional examination for another 3 months. Whatever the audit plan they're going to have, it changes from whatever the project you are dealing with. Now, for instance, let's take an example for one of the projects. For ABC Tech, we are performing audit from January 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2024. Now, if I talk about audit period, whatever the date format, it in US, you will have a different date format. It will start with month. So January 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2024. This is the audit period. Right? This is how this is the format we used to follow for US clients. But if it is India, you can depends upon what firm you're working with and what type of client you're working with. The date format will change based on the geographical location of the client. Now audit period. Now date of today, I'm going to do control testing for this specific control. So I'm going to give today's date 14/4/16/2025. So operative effectiveness, the final conclusion, still we have. So until we test this control, we should not update this. Now testing prepared. So I'll update my name. Now testing reviewer, there'll be a different independent team which will be referred as QA team, where they will review the whole work paper for each and every control at the end of the control testing. So once if they review, then only this control testing will be finalized, which is referred as QA review. So they will update the review details, but for now you will see, you have to update rest of the control testing details. Now, for instance, assume we are testing provisioning control. You have to copy the control ID SCIA 01 control ID. You need to copy the control details from the RACM, risk and control matrix, and update the details in the work paper. Risk. Sometimes you will also have this, the detailed risk also documented within the RACM. You can also copy and paste. So we don't know how frequently this user access provisioning is done for any of the user. We are not sure, right? Whenever there is a new user, access will be created whenever it is necessary. So you will be referred as ad hoc. So since you are not sure about how frequently they are going to create the access, you can refer it as ad hoc or as needed. So you don't know the frequency, right? So you refer it as ad hoc or as needed. Control nature, this is preventive in nature. So now this is a manual control. So now user access request should be created manually. So this is manual control. Preventive in nature, frequency is as needed. Whenever the person needs access, they will create the access. They will create access request ticket and get approvals and create the access. Now we updated the control details. Now you need to get the population. Now what is the population? List of users, user access rights created during audit period for all the in-scope applications. Maybe for the new employees, sometimes they may not need access. Assume there is a receptionist who were hired, but the person may not require access to the system. So you can't always rely on new users. Right? Sometimes there was a different person working for a different department. Now they need access for new application. Obviously, he's not a new employee or new user to the environment. He already have the access, but he's requesting access for one additional application, or due to role changes, they may need new access rights, right? Now you can't rely on employee roster, but you can use employee roster, but you also need user listing from each of the in-scope application, right? So user listing, so you will specify what are the different applications like Azure, Microsoft AD, SAP, whatever the different applications where you are obtaining user listings, you will specify the source, what are the different applications and how you are pulling the data. A population, for instance, I'll take one specific application. Now, for instance, I'm taking Salesforce as an example. Now, these are the users, overall users. Let's take Azure. Okay. Now, these are the overall users, user listing within Azure, right? Now, we will ask the IT team provide this user listing from Azure and all other in-scope application, but let's do testing for only Azure. Now, these are the overall users. Now you can see these are the overall users, but not the only users created during the audit period. Now you need to perform audit for the users created during the audit period, not prior to the audit period, right? These are the overall list. This is the overall listing. Now you will apply filter and select only users created during 2024 within Azure. And these are there are almost 12 users who were created during 2024. Right now, once if you get this listing, you need to ensure that the list is complete and accurate. Now, so you will ask the IT person now, however you generate the report, however you provide export this listing, can you provide a screenshot how the listing is exported from the Azure? Now they will take some sort of screenshot. This is not 100% accurate. This is something I randomly predict from Google, but you will get some sort of screenshot like this which shows the users listed here, the whoever the users listed here, the same user should be listed in the screenshot, so that the users are pretty much same from the screenshot or from the source and the data provided in the spreadsheet. Right now, you need to validate the number of users. Now you have 62 users, right? You have 62 users within this Azure listing. Now you should also have same 62 users. If you can see row count in this screenshot, we don't have row count, but you can see row count within the screenshot provided for CNA, completeness and accuracy. Now, whatever the screenshot they will take and provide, it should also include, you can see the timestamp here, right? 354, 416, 2025. The timestamp should also be included whenever they're capturing completeness and accuracy screenshot. Now, once if you have this completeness and accuracy screenshot, you validate whether the data provided in the spreadsheet is complete and accurate. Now, you select only the rows which are in scope for testing this control. Only 2024, you have 12 users. Now you document this here, population analysis, right? So you have the users. Now you need to select samples. You can't assume this is a small population, but sometimes you have the huge list of 100,000, even more than 1,000, right? Obviously you can't test the overall population. It takes a lot of time, efforts, and you know it takes in fact it takes a lot of money as well, right? So considering the kind of time it is going to take to test the whole population, as per audit standards, you can use sampling methodology. I'm going to show you how to select such samples, right? So I'll show you for one of the. So you can go to random.org. So there is something called random integer set generator. Now you can set, sometimes we will generate two sets based on the population size and as per our auditing policies built by the company. So out of 14, you will select 5 samples, 12 samples between 1 to 14. Or in this case, you have 12, right? So, but there are 14. Get sets. So you will get some sort of list like this. Set 1, 2, 3, 7, 2, 12, 14. Now you will copy and paste the numbers here. So earlier, whatever the samples we have selected is 5, 18, 9, 10, and 13. Now you apply some formula here to map if count, if you apply this specific formula for sample rows and row numbers, now it will automatically create this cross mark if the sample selected here. Now you can filter only this sample selected. You can copy and paste in a different sheet called samples, and this is how it looks like. You can update entity name, audit period for even in sample selection sheet. Once if you fill all these once if you have sample selections selected, you will send it to the client. You will ask them for the relevant evidence. But from test of design point of view, initially out of this listing, you will select any of the user. You will ask them to walk you through how the created is access request is created, who raised the access request, who approved it, and when was the access created. Now, access should be approved by authorized person prior to access creation. Now you perform walkthrough where they will go through one of the sample and they will show you the ticket. You can see the date, when was it created, when was it approved, who approved it, and when was the access actually created. Now access approval should come first, then access creation should be done. Now, once after test of design is completed, then you will go with the samples. You will send the samples to the client. They will provide similar tickets, what they showed for the, one of the user in test of design, similar evidence or, relevant evidence to prove that access is approved for all these sampled users prior to access creation. Now you get the evidence, you validate the evidence. Now I'll show, evidence for one of the typical user. You can see this. Maybe this session may extend for another 10 minutes, but please be patient. So this is how ticket looks like. So this is not 100% same, but I tried to capture the best screenshot of what I got. So you will have the details, who requested it, whether it is approved by who requested it, whether it is approved or not, who approved it. You will have a comment section down below within the ticket. You can see who approved it. Sometimes you'll have a logs or to see who approved it. Sometimes most of the time, managers will approve. You'll have a manager name in the assignee part. But during your walkthrough, you can see, you can understand how exactly the process flow works. Right? You will have, sometimes the company use some local tools, or sometimes they use their emails, or sometimes they use this type of user access request form. They will fill all the details. They will mention what are the dictating access rights required, and they will also have the approvals documented within the access request form. Sometimes they will have the combination of both access request form and access approvals as well. Now both all together, they will use to create the access. Right? For access deprovisioning, high privileged access, you will get the administrative lists. For user access reviews, you will get, user listing with UAR validation like this. And for password management, you will get screenshots like this. You'll get different type of screenshots for each of the controls, but let's understand the work paper, right? So your population size is, you should not include the overall list rows. You should include only the population size which is comes under scope. So 14, no, sample size is 5. So you sampling methodology is random. I'm going to, um, make a dedicated video on sampling methodology. We will upload it soon into YouTube. Please, subscribe YouTube so that you don't miss any of our videos. Okay, random sampling, completeness and accuracy. Maybe you can narrate what type of documents are reviewed to confirm that completeness and accuracy is maintained. Sample selection reference. Now you can document it, and you can mention the reference here. Maybe you can attach it, or you can just mention the file path here. Now, whenever you're testing any specific control, you need to write validation attributes. What are the different validation attributes you are going to test? Now, I'll write two attributes. Assume there is a company who uses both access request form and access request ticket, both, and should get approval from the business owner, right? So access request form is created for all the new users. This is one of the attributes, right? Now, access request ticket, access request form is created by the HR team for all the new users. Should ticket will be raised by manager, approved by business head, right? Access request is approved prior to access creation. Assume these are the three different validation attributes. There should be access request form. In addition to that, manager should raise an access request ticket to the IT team with business head approvals. Maybe the manager will raise a ticket to the business head to get the approval. And once if the business head approves the access request, then the ticket will be routed to the IT team, where the IT team will review both access request ticket and access request form, and the IT team will create the access. Now, first thing, form should be there, ticket should be there with business head approval, and access should be approved prior to access creation. So approval should come first, then the access creation. These are the three validation attributes we are going to check. Now, testing steps, few companies, they will, mention whatever we followed: obtain the population, validate the completeness and accuracy, select samples, perform test of design, test of operative effectiveness, using sampling methodology. Like, you will mention all those here, right? Test of maintaining, writing test of design and test of operative effectiveness is key here, right? Now, I'll narrate test of design, how we write the summary. Based on that, you can pick it up. Okay, so we as SCIA Global inquired Revant M, IT head, to gain more understanding about user access provisioning, and noted that access request is created by HR team and approved by reporting manager and business head based on the access rights requested for the user. Access rights, level of access required, requested for the user. Additionally, for a sample of one user, So maybe for test of design, assume you have selected this specific user. You will write named. You write his designation, maybe IT analyst who was hired on. You'll write specific date, hired on, and access request form was filled by. You'll write the, maybe Suresh, HR, and access request ticket was raised by Ravi, reporting manager, and approved by Raja, business head. You will write the designation of the user. For now, I'm just writing it as business head. You'll also specify the date. So when was it requested? When was on? You'll write the date. And access was created by the IT team on. You'll give a specific date. So you confirming that access is up, access request was approved by authorized personnel prior to access creation. So this is how you narrate. This is not great, but for time being, I'm just try to make it simple. So this is how you narrate. You mention what is the conclusion of your inquiry, with whom you performed your walkthrough. You write the summary of your inquiry. In addition to that, you select a sample of one user. You obtain the relevant user access request form and user access request ticket. You validate when was it requested, who requested it, when was it approved, who approved it, and when was the access created. Whether the access is approved by authorized personnel prior to access creation. You summarize it and you write the summary of test of design. Right now, the kind of details which we are going to give here changes from SOX ITGCs and SOC 2 ITGCs. Right, changes the kind of details from SOX point of view. Few companies they give even more details. What is the population, where how the population was obtained. They will give in-depth summary, but this I believe what you need to verify is what is the population obtained, whether the population, what is the source of the population, if the completeness and accuracy is maintained or not. Now, what is the summary of the inquiry or walkthrough? Now, how the test of design is performed, for who is the, what is the sample you have selected to perform test of design, and what is the summary of it, right? You conclude it and write the narration and you mark what is the result, right? Similarly, once if you're good with that, you do the testing, you go to the sample selections, you copy the samples, you paste it in. So you have different samples here. You have 5 samples and username. You'll write access request date, access requester, So you have all approver details, approval date, access creation date. You already have it in, logs. You'll copy it from here. Date. Now you get the evidence. You have to fill in all the details. Who requested the access? When was it requested? Who approved it? When was the access request approved? So what you have to fill in the details. Like you have overall 3 attributes. Now A, you have 3 attributes. So now for each of the user, you need to verify if access request form is maintained. I'm going to remove this specific cell, this specific column, because this is not necessary. Right? So you can remove it from the work paper since you are not using these specific columns. Now, so for each of the samples selected, you need to check whether, so if you go to phones, you have to select WebDings. You will get a check mark. If you give small a, you will get the check marks. So for each of the sample, you need to see if they have access request form, access request ticket, and the required approvals, and access is approved by authorized personnel prior to access creation. So once if all these details are good, then you will give check mark. Okay, if you have any gaps, then you will follow up, and if you want, you can also fail. For failing, you can you check into mark. You have these at tick mark legends. Maybe if it fails, you can use smaller in WebDings and which will reflect it as into mark. So you have to, verify evidence for each of the sample and see if all these 3 attributes are met for each of the sample. For now, I think maybe we can't spend a lot of time on updating all these detail for each of the user, but remember, you copy and paste the samples from the sample selections to the work paper, see the relevant evidence provided by the client for these samples, go and review the evidence and update these details for each of the user. Now verify if each of the validation attribute A, B, and C is met for each of the sample. So if we are good, then just give check marks and write the summary. Now let's narrate the summary for final test of operative effectiveness. SCIA selected a sample of, or you can also specify randomly selected. Randomly selected a sample of 5 new users, 5 new Azure users, because you are testing for a specific application, or 5 new users for Azure, new users for Azure out of 14 created during the audit period. So you can also specify audit period here, January 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2024. Obtained and examined access request forms, access request tickets, created by HR team, access request tickets, raised by reporting managers and approved by business head prior to access creation. Examine access request form created and raised by reporting manager, approved by approvals. Triggers the reporting managers and noted that access requests are approved by business heads prior to access creation for all the new Azure users during the audit period. So no exceptions noted or no deviations noted. So it depends, how you conclude it depends upon whether you are testing on for SOC 2 or ITGCs. So you can simply mention as no exceptions noted, which means that no any gaps noted, right? So once you are good with it, maybe you can go, further details as well. But to summarize this is how you, simplify and you write the summary. Now, so if both test of design and test of operating effectiveness is effective, then only you conclude this control as effective. So if you find any gap as a part of test of design, then you won't perform test of operative effectiveness. You will conclude your testing with test of design itself, because there is a gap in test of design. Then what is the purpose of test of performing test of operative effectiveness? Since there is a gap in test of design, so you need to perform remediation for test of design. If the test of design is effective, then only you will proceed for test of operative effectiveness. Now, if you find any deviations in test of operative effectiveness, it means test of design is good, but test of operative, there is a gap in test of operative. Assume there is lot of gaps in test of operative effectiveness. Still, maybe you need to reconsider designing the control again, right? Because since there are a lot of gaps in the current process they are following, from the operative effectiveness point of view, sometimes it is recommended to redesign the control to ensure that there won't be any such gaps in the future, right? So at a overall, you need to verify both test of design and test of operative effectiveness to complete your control testing, right? Now you'll go to control matrix. You will have the test summary, test results. You'll have test preparer, right? Test reviewer. So you'll have all these details. So you'll update the test summary here. You'll update the test results. Now you update your name, and you will also give the sign off, test preparer sign off, date and time. Now test reviewer, control test reviewer. All the details will be updated within the final control manager. This will be, added to the final report. Along with this work paper, sometimes few companies also have a generic summary from SOC 2 standpoint. You can't specify how many samples selected or who is the person you inquired. So to summarize in a generic way, you will have a different summary which will be added here. So SCIA selected a sample of new users or new Azure users. Inspected access request forms, tickets, and noted that access request access is access requests are approved by authorized personnel prior to access creation for all the new users created during the audit period. No exceptions. So this is from SOC 2 standpoint, where you'll also have a generic summary where you won't specify any sensitive details, or a lot of details like inquiry, like number of, what is the population size, what is the sample size, because in audit reports sometimes, from SOC standpoint, it is not necessary to specify any sensitive information of the organization, since you're going to share these reports to your stakeholders or your customers. So it is not necessary to specify any employees names or population details and all. So you keep the summary, the narrations so generic, right? Now, this is how you prepare the work paper. This is how you narrate the summary. The kind of in-depth in writing the summary may change from one audit form to another audit form. But, overall, the objective is to, summarize what is the population obtained, whether you maintained completeness and whether you validated completeness and accuracy for the population obtained, and what is the sampling approach based on the frequency and population size. Now, what is the inquiry performed, what is the summary of inquiry, what is the summary of test of design, what is the summary of test of operative effectiveness. Now, what is the result at the end, right? Now, you will narrate the overall test procedures in the work paper, and these are the details which you are going to document within the work paper most of the time. Few companies, they won't mention frequency, nature, control type, risk within the work paper, but it is recommended to have all those. Sometimes you will have source and population details within the sample selection sheet, but end of the day, it's up to the audit firm how they wanted to have this. But at a overall, these are the details that you should know as an auditor when you're testing any specific control. Okay, that's pretty much from my side. But yeah, I hope that we have more time on this. Maybe I'll have one more session on control testing part from SOC 2 standpoint, or maybe sometime next month, not anytime soon. But yeah, thanks a lot, guys. I'll go for Q&A now. So let's go through Q&As. Just give me some, let me drink some water. Okay. So from SOC's point of view, if population is 16 and control frequency is 8 months, how many samples we will pick for testing? Now, the question is itself is incorrect. If the frequency is 8 months, then the population size is not 16. You will have once in a year, if you perform audit for 1 year, obviously, if the frequency of the control is 8 months, you'll have only 8 months, right, in a year. Now, the population size can't be 16 in that case, whatever. But if you see from backups or bad jobs point of view, so let's consider backups, right? So you have 16 servers, but the question is completely incorrect, man. The frequency is 8 months. Now, how can the population be 16? Right? Maybe Ramesh, you can reach out to me in person as well. Completely fine to answer you. Ashwin Kumar, hi, just for the reviewing this session again. I hope we'll be providing the presentation along with the. No, absolutely no. We can't provide any of this documentation because this includes a lot of details, right? absolutely we can't share, but we will upload the video to YouTube. You can, maybe see the video multiple times to understand. Any other questions, Revant?
Sure.
Chat box. Okay. Oh, lot of questions. This Muhammad Arshad is having a lot of food. Okay. Pravina, if you get any chance, please start ITGC starting stage. So this is to it. User appropriateness should be verified by users manager or respective application. It depends, right? If you are providing access to any specific application, obviously access should be approved by the manager or respective application owner. The IT team will be providing access, but so process is, the standard process is not same for all the organizations. Few people, they prefer to, get approvals from the managers, but however, the administrative team, they will review whether the manager is approved. Sometimes you need multiple approvals, maybe approval from the manager and the application administrator as well. Two level of approvals are required in few cases, right? It's a combination of both in certain cases. And what parameters the control frequency is decided by the organization. Now, how frequently? Assume user access reviews are performed on a quarterly basis, right? Based on the risk, based on the risk level, the company decides how frequently they should perform or operate a specific control. Now, for uh, controls like, a frequency where there is no specific frequency, like as needed or ad hoc, the company won't decide any frequency, like user access provisioning. You can't have any specific frequency, right? Because we don't know when there will be a new user, when the access request will be created. Now, the access will be access request will be granted whenever it is required. So it is an ad hoc, but other cases like user access reviews. So they know, what is the kind of risk, what is the impact if they don't have such kind of control. Now, in such cases, they can decide how frequently they should implement the control or how frequently they should perform user access reviews. So they know it. So they know what is the frequency, whether it is quarterly or assume well, antivirus scans are performed on a daily basis or automatically. Automatically, you don't have frequency. But for backups are performed on a daily basis, right? Now you know the frequency is daily, right? So on an annual basis, you will have 365 backups for each of the in-scope server, right? Now the frequency is daily. Sorry. So you know the frequency. Now you select a sample of 25 days for your testing. But I can quickly send some screenshot here for your reference. But based on what we will be, you know, selecting samples, let me send you a screenshot. I'm sending it in chat. I don't know if you will get it here. Yeah. So you can see the screenshot, posted in the chart to understand how this frequency, population, and sample size works. So for the controls where you know the frequency, it is, how you, as a company, they decided how frequently they should, implement or follow that process, right? For whatever the controls, you don't know how frequently they are going to do. In that such cases, you consider it as needed and ad hoc. Now you will get to know at the time of audit, you will get to know what is the population size. Then you decide, what is the sample size based on the population size and the kind of risk the control is having. based on the impact and risk. So yes, absolutely, we will post the recording in YouTube. TOD or attributes are same. Absolutely, yes, both for test of design and test of operative effectiveness. The attributes are same, but from population point of view, you need to ensure the completeness and accuracy is maintained when you obtain the population. And whatever the evidence you get, sometimes you get evidence in the form of spreadsheets. You need to ensure that evidence obtained as a part of in the form of spreadsheets, the evidence is complete and accurate. You need to get some sort of source screenshot, how they have pulled that Excel spreadsheet, and what are the parameters that you are going to verify to confirm completeness and accuracy. Those things should be kept in mind. So for completeness and accuracy purpose, sometimes you get SQL query. Yes, absolutely. Depends. If they pull you know population from any specific tool or application directly, then you will get the screenshot. But if they run any query to get the data, then you will get the query. Then you should be able to understand the query to see whatever the data provided with is complete and accurate. But still they will get the screenshot, what is the query run, what is the data pulled from the system. So you need to see both query and what is the data pulled from the system. So you'll get both query and screenshot. So do we need to remember the sampling size, or there any formula to calculate? Most of the time you can follow the same, but however, if you're working as an auditor, so each company will have their own sampling methodology guide. You can refer that. If you don't have it, just ask to the respective manager. You will get the sampling guidance document. So as a consulting firm, we have our own policy. So every company will have their own, sampling methodology guide. So you can refer it, what is the population size, how to decide what is the population size, what is the frequency, everything will be documented in that specific session. So apart from ITGCs, you have two other things: application controls and IPAs, which are nothing but key reports. Yeah, maybe I'll see, because there are a lot of webinars in pipeline. We need to cover SOC 2. We have to do NIST. We also have to cover cybersecurity related sessions, artificial intelligence, and all lot of things. But yeah, I'll see what can be done. So what do we do if any deviations noted? So if there were any deviations, definitely, if it is from SOX standpoint, you have to maintain a separate gap tracker. You have to document all the gaps from test of design point of view or test of operative effectiveness point of view. You will document all the gaps in a separate spreadsheet called gap tracker. You will reach out to respective point of contact with remediation steps. Maybe you will have a dedicated team for remediation process, where they will give steps for remediation. They will raise the ticket and they will give due date for remediation, and they will raise the remediation request for respective control owner or control operator with the due date. Respective point of contact should remediate the process. Maybe they need to update the policy and implement the control. Once if they complete the implementation process, they do remediation. They have to submit the evidence to the auditor once again. Now they will verify and examine the remediation evidence, then they will close the control. But if from SOC 2 standpoint, there is no such thing as remediation from the audit point of view. We'll update the result. If there is a gap, you will fail the control. But if there is only one sample, if there is a failure with only one sample, then you will expand the samples. If there are multiple, samples failed, then you will, consider it as a failure from SOC 2 point of view. Any other questions, guys? This is a lot. Anything else? Q&A? Can you please take sessions on how to read? Jira tickets of I have read your message, but I don't have any Jira tickets with me to go through. Absolutely, I have, but I can't show any sensitive data of our clients. So do we still have any questions on top? So guys, please post it in Q&A. Chat. This question. Okay. Some small level organization won't follow SOD because of their lack of manpower. Is it okay or any other alternative way for that? Absolutely. Obviously, if it is a startup or small size organization, you can't have a lot of resources to follow SODs, but you can always have some sort of review process. Assume even the manager approves and the same person, if there is a conflict of role, whether the same team member or same person does two different roles, at least a different person should be able to review and validate whether the action performed by the manager is appropriate or not, or the action performed by the initial user is appropriate or not. So that compensating process should be there. Definitely, every control, it can't reduce the risk to 100%. It can reduce the risk at an optimum level, but if there is a lot of risk, then definitely you should have some sort of compensating process. Maybe a second level of review should be performed if there is no SWOT is maintained. Recording, I joined late. Yes, absolutely. You'll get the recording. We will post it in YouTube. Please follow SCIA Global on LinkedIn and you subscribe on YouTube to get these kind of recordings and updates from SCIA Global. Revans, maybe you can summarize. Thanks a lot, guys. Hope you enjoyed this session. You learned something new today. Also, if a person deprovisioned in April 1st, guys, this is a lot. Maybe if a person, I'll answer only these two questions. So if a person deprovisioned in April 1st, but the user not removed from the system, person revoked on April 14th, how I proceed in this case? This is considered as gap, but refer to the policy. What is the time duration they mentioned in the policy? Most of the time it's 24 hours. Access should be removed within 24 hours. Now, if they haven't disabled it, it means it's a gap. Just communicate it to your seniors that you noted this gap and communicate it to the client that if you are working in a junior role, don't communicate it directly to the client. Maybe sometimes they will, they won't be able to digest. So communicate it to your seniors, then they will, discuss internally, then approach the client saying that, hey, this is a gap. For password management, some organizations give reference of latest NIST directives for simple passwords. Absolutely, because NIST is very a good framework. So definitely, companies can refer to different frameworks like NIST or ISO, a lot of other frameworks, right? Definitely, you can follow those. They said length should be increased, not complexity. No, both are very important. So from length and complexity point of view, both those are considered as best practices, right? There is no few people consider it as length, few people consider it's both complexity and length. It's a judgment call, but I personally believe you should have a decent, length of password along with the complexity requirements. Achieved through length and diverse characters. It's by forcing specific complexity patterns. Okay, guys. Revant, you can wrap it up.
Yes. So, firstly, sincere apologies that we went overboard, but thank you for the sticking around and uh, being very patient. So I see a lot of this is a very, very interactive session. I see a lot of questions. I see a lot of requests as well. So a few of you are asking for a webinar on SOC 2, for a webinar on ITACs and IPs. So we'll make a note of it, all of them, and going ahead, we'll try to do dedicated sessions, dedicated webinars with a bit more extra time. Um, so that you can understand it from real time audit point of view. Apart from that, for more such webinars or more such details, I would request you to follow us on SCIA Global at LinkedIn. And for those who joined late, uh, don't worry. The entire session is recorded and we'll post it on our YouTube channel, which is SCIA Global. So kindly do subscribe to that as well. And once again, thank you for that. And I see also questions regarding our training, trading modules. So for that, the costings we cannot discuss here since this goes on live. So I would request you to reach out to us on LinkedIn or the details that we gave, the phone number and the email. So you can also, if you want to meet us directly, you can also come to Toli Chowki. You will find us on Google Maps, Hyderabad. Yeah. Okay. Thank you once again, guys, for joining this session. This was very, very interactive session. A lot of questions came in, a lot of requests came in. We will take everything into consideration and we will try to give our best, even more best than this from coming webinars. Thank you once again. Um, Take care. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, guys. Have a nice rest of the day ahead.